NASCAR has reinserted itself into the mainstream conversation. NASCAR has been trending all up and down social media for the last 48 hours or so, and this comes as a result of several drivers speaking up on issues they are passionate about, as well as NASCAR itself making a very firm decision. We have a lot to talk about today. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. The purpose of this show is to talk about racing, specifically to talk about NASCAR racing more than anything else. I'm a lifelong NASCAR fan. I'm passionate about the sport. It's provided me with great entertainment my entire life, and I want to see it continue for many generations to come, and that's why I created this show, is to kind of have a conversation with other race fans around the country, around the world, because where I grew up, I didn't have any friends to talk about NASCAR with. Nobody at my high school or elementary school really knew anything about NASCAR. I couldn't have very many conversations with my friends about NASCAR, so I created this show to sort of have some form of a conversation with fans like you around the entire world, which is why I'm really active on social media and why I'm really active on this channel, because I love having these debates and discussions, and 99% of the time, the debates and discussions center around the actual on-track racing. I talk about rule changes, driver performance, contracts, extensions, theories, all that kind of stuff. That's what I primarily choose to talk about on this show. That's what I've historically chosen to talk about on the show, and what I plan to talk about primarily on this show going forward. But sometimes the conversation around NASCAR becomes so big that we have to take a step back and really examine the bigger picture beyond just NASCAR racing and cars going in circles and putting on a show every weekend. So that's how I'm going to start today's episode. I am going to talk about TV ratings because there's some exciting news on that front as well, but I'm going to start with all the news, all the fact that NASCAR has been in the news so much the last couple of days. In an episode 2 days ago, I talked about the rumor that was NASCAR possibly changing its policy surrounding the Confederate flag. Yesterday afternoon, before the night race at Martinsville took the green flag, NASCAR made their statement official. Straight from NASCAR corporate, the presence of the Confederate flag at NASCAR events runs contrary to our commitment to providing a welcoming and inclusive environment for all fans, our competitors, and our industry. Bringing people together around a love for racing and the community that it creates is what makes our fans and sport special. The display of the Confederate flag will be prohibited from all NASCAR events and properties. Shortly after that statement was released, NASCAR became the #1 trend on social media across the United States of America. Many prominent athletes from other sports praised NASCAR for this statement and for taking this action, and many within the racing world itself also praised NASCAR for this statement. As expected, though, some opinions varied widely from each other. Of course, the NASCAR ball, if you will, continued to roll into yesterday evening when Bubba Wallace ran his special paint scheme and actually had a really good race. We talked about it last night, finished 11th, one of his best performances of his career, I must say. But that paint scheme, of course, drew attention from many outside the sport, and we'll talk about TV ratings in a minute, but it definitely, I think, had an effect on those numbers. And then I woke up this morning, had myself a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, as I am known to do, and opened up Twitter for the first time and saw the #1 trend in the United States was Ray Ciccarelli. And I was like, Ray Ciccarelli, auto race, who's that? Oh, the Truck Series driver who's made like 30 Truck Series starts, I think, in his entire career. Doesn't have any stats of note, never runs up front, doesn't have the equipment to run up front. I looked at his racing reference page. I think he has 1 top 10 in his whole career. So nobody noteworthy within the sport of NASCAR by any means. He was the #1 trend on Twitter, and Twitter is massive, y'all. Earlier today, and he might still be as the time I'm recording this, I'm not sure. Ray was trending because he made a post to his Facebook page where he'd announced that he was quitting NASCAR because of their statement on the Confederate flag. Well, it's been a fun ride and dream come true, but if this is the direction NASCAR is headed, we will not participate after the 2020 season is over. And then he goes on there. I'm not going to read the entire quote because there's some colorful language in there, but you can see where he stands on this entire topic. Of course, most of the people on Twitter were just clowning Ray Ciccarelli because, he is irrelevant in the NASCAR world. I mean, there are plenty of pretty big NASCAR fans out there that don't know who Ray Ciccarelli is. He has not raced in any races this year. I didn't know he still had a team, to be quite honest with you. I didn't know what he looked like. I knew the name. I did not know what he looked like until I saw photos of him floating around. So my point is, he is not relevant to NASCAR in any meaningful way whatsoever. However, the conversation was surrounding him this morning when I woke up, and it just gave me a headache. It really did. Things continued later on when Jimmy Johnson publicly fired his helmet designer after Beam Designs' official Twitter account posted several tweets denouncing NASCAR's recent statement, as well as criticizing Bubba Wallace's scheme that he ran last night at Martinsville, among several others. So Jimmy Johnson, NASCAR's most successful current driver, publicly firing his helmet designer was noteworthy as well. And as of the time I'm filming and editing this video, that's basically where things stand. NASCAR is still at the tip of everyone's tongue. Everyone in the sports world is talking about NASCAR. Many in just the news world are talking about NASCAR today. Many people around the country are talking about NASCAR today, more so than they ever have in a long time. Now I am going to talk some about the various arguments around NASCAR's statement, where they go from here, that kind of thing. I made my opinion on the whole Confederate flag deal pretty clear in my video a couple days ago. I said it then when it was just a proposal that they would ban it. I said that I wouldn't be sad to see the flag go, and I stand by that now that they've officially banned it. NASCAR is getting a lot of praise from its fans, from people in the media. It's getting a lot of praise for making the statement they did, for picking the side and taking the action that they did yesterday, but it's also getting backlash from some of its own fans, from other folks. It's getting backlash as well. The Confederate flag obviously has a complicated history and means something a little bit different to everyone. As it happens, there is a very large portion of the United States population that does not think warm fuzzy thoughts when they see that flag. To that group, the flag represents a history of hatred and exclusivity, and that is undeniable. That is how this large group of people feel about that flag. Looking at this from NASCAR's perspective, they are their own brand, and they have a brand to protect. They have an identity that they want to show the world. And so they do have a right to make decisions like this, decisions that impact the way they are portrayed by the public. You cannot deny the fact that there is a large group of people, many of one particular race in this country, see this flag as a symbol of hatred. And so I don't think it's fair to ignore those concerns. And I think NASCAR in this case is making a good decision. I mean, if we just look at this from a marketing perspective, I mean, NASCAR historically has one of the oldest fan bases of any major sport. And if you want to last long term, if NASCAR wants to be around for decades to come, they're going to have to change that at some point. They're going to have to appeal to younger audiences at a higher rate than they are now. And one thing that is proven by studies is that younger people have, in general, a more negative view of the Confederate flag than older people in this country do. And so that's why if you look around at people who are praising NASCAR's decision, many of the people praising NASCAR's decision yesterday were young people. I'll just go back to what I said earlier this week. NASCAR races should be an open event that anyone and everyone should feel comfortable attending. And the truth is, there is a large group of people in this country that if they see that flag prominently displayed in many forms at one of these events, they are going to stay away. I mean, they're just going to stay away. They're going to ignore it, and they're going to shun this sport in many ways. NASCAR choosing to ban this flag from these events will make NASCAR races look more generally appealing to mass audiences. And I know this is something I've argued in favor of for years, that NASCAR does need to factor in what mainstream audiences want to see. They can't just focus on the hardcore race fan. They do have to factor other people in if they want to stay big. And this is an example of them sort of following that route, at least in this case. I'm not here to have a political debate about, where or how the Confederate flag should be shown in the future. I'm not going to debate that. I'm just saying from NASCAR's perspective, I think coming out with that statement yesterday was a good move for them. And it's a move that I think is and will continue to be appreciated by many. I would say the majority of its fans and the majority of its future fans for years to come. But certainly a surprising decision. If you had told me in January that we'd be talking about this in June, like halfway through the year, if you told me anything that happened this year was going to happen in January, I would have thought you were crazy. This whole year has been pretty topsy-turvy, but I must say I did not see this coming, and I don't think many fans did either. But just by gauging on the initial reaction from folks, I think NASCAR is making the right call here. But of course, people are going to have varying opinions on this. I'm trying to be as respectful to everyone as I possibly can here, because I do think it's important to have respectful debates on these types of topics, but that's where I'm going to leave it for now. I do want to talk a little bit about racing, or specifically about a race, specifically last night's Martinsville night race, midweek race. The TV ratings are in. According to Fox Sports, last night's race posted a 1.14 rating. No specific viewership count has been revealed just yet, but that rating is 16% higher than the most recent weeknight NASCAR race. That was Thursday a couple weeks ago on FS1. And also according to Fox and FS1, through the first 11 races this year, the NASCAR Cup Series overnight ratings are 1% higher in 2020 than they were last year in 2019. And this is despite Daytona being rained out and forced to run on a Monday. This is also despite the 2.5-month hiatus due to the pandemic. If the Daytona 500 had not been rained out after the first 20 laps on Sunday, those ratings for this year would probably be a couple percentage points higher than that even compared to last year. NASCAR's ratings this year have been boosted by the Daytona 500, which always gets solid ratings, but of course lower this year on Monday specifically because of the rain out. It was also boosted by the first race back after the pandemic, Darlington. That race, remember, had a very significant jump year to year due to being the first race back and also being one of the only major live sports on TV at the time. But this is substantial news. Not entirely surprising that last night's race would get a little bit higher ratings than the other midweek races, partially because the other midweek races so far this year have been affected by weather. Last night's race was not, but also, as I mentioned, for the first however long this show, NASCAR has been getting talked about quite a bit the last couple of days. So I'm sure there were a lot of new faces tuning in, or maybe some faces who hadn't watched NASCAR in a while tuning in for the first time this year to see that race last night. I'm sure that helped the viewership number as well. But what I place the most stock in is that last tweet I showed you, the fact that this year's ratings are 1% higher than last year's ratings, despite all the crap that NASCAR and Fox have had to fight through and deal with and work around this year. That's pretty admirable. That number doesn't even factor in all the pro invitational races that were consistently drawing in close to 1 million viewers a race, which, you know, were kind of just brought up out of nowhere. Those are kind of just bonus viewers in a way for FS1 and Fox. So definitely, Fox and NASCAR this year have had a solid season, especially given all the outstanding circumstances. They've worked through it very well, making the most of a bad situation. So credit to Fox and credit to NASCAR for working things out the way they have been able to so far this year. Of course, Fox only has a couple of races left before NBC takes over for the second half of this season, but hopefully that number continues to trend upward and they can end up with a positive year-to-year gain in the TV ratings category. That would be pretty cool to see. And anyway, I had some more I thought about talking about in this video, but I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. I appreciate you guys listening. This was a different video than I'm used to making, but I felt like, just given how big the conversation around NASCAR has gotten in the last 24 hours or so, I figured a video needed to be made, and a conversation between, you know, myself and all of you who watch on a weekly basis. I feel like this was a conversation that needed to be had. This is something we needed to you know, discuss as well as, you know, everyone else discussing it. So I hope you all enjoyed. I appreciate you all watching. That's all I've got. Subscribe if you are new. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter. Continue the conversation on other forms of social media as well. Thank you all for the support. I'll be back very soon with more of your regularly scheduled style videos, sooner rather than later. So thanks for tuning in. I will see you all again later this week, or this weekend, I suppose. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you real soon.